Welcome to the Dr. Nikki Starr Show, a podcast to support you in your spiritual awakening and personal development. As a spiritual teacher, healer, and intuitive coach, my intention is to empower you to live your ultimate potential and your ultimate life. As a former medical doctor and mystic, my role is to bridge the gap between science and spirituality to support you in understanding more of your multidimensional aspects. I share on a diverse range of topics, and it's all to support your greatest becoming. My mission is to continue reaching millions of people for the healing and awakening of humankind for the creation of the new earth. Thank you for being here.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Dr. Nikki Starr Show. Today, I'm with Kim Anami, and we are going to be talking about cervical orgasms as a path to enlightenment. And this is a topic that I think is very spiritual. Of course, it taps into our sexuality and our relationships with ourselves and others. But before we get started, I'm going to introduce Kim and have her introduce herself, actually. Welcome, Kim.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here talking about one of my favorite topics, cervical orgasms, and the transcendent, godlike nature of them.
Yeah. And, you know, this topic, I found you, I don't even know, I think I might have found you online somewhere. And what really drew me to you just some years ago is that you were carrying a surfboard with your vaginal muscles. And I'm like, this woman I want to learn from, because people talk a lot, but like the proof is in the pudding and the actual actions. And so you were really embodying that healthy, vital vagina. And so I was like, okay, who is she? And I did your vaginal kung fu some years ago, and I found it super helpful and really powerful. And I feel like I had even asked you questions inside that salon at one point. I think we were talking about G-spots and just how like a lot of the medical literature doesn't even fully acknowledge it. And I was trained as a medical doctor, and I remember being in my OBGYN rotation and some things questioning if the G-spot even existed. And I was like, yeah, it does, because I have felt it, so I know it exists. And yeah, I just really appreciate that you also look at the science as well as the spiritual side. And I'm also both like 3D and 5D. And so I really value that in your teachings. And in terms of this topic specifically, how we talk about as a path to enlightenment, you know, I really see it as, and we can dive deeper into each one of these, but really as women, so much of our spiritual path is to heal the wounds, the traumas, the trapped emotions, the things that are keeping us small and stuck and not in our true power and radiance. And so there is this unpeeling, unveiling process that happens. And I know that the path to cervical orgasms also requires that. And so maybe you want to speak a little bit more about that. And I don't remember if it was you, but, you know, different people talk about like the yoni bricks, and, you know, you're kind of building these walls and this armor every time you are wounded or traumatized or in a relationship, and things don't get healed and processed.
Yeah, I mean, that's where the orgasms become this beautiful barometer for the level of openness that a woman really has. So some people can get fixated on the notion of like they're not having them and why not, but it's like, okay, well, that's information. If you aren't having them, that's because somewhere you've missed a piece. There's blockages that need to be cleared. There's a level of surrender that you haven't gotten to yet. So it's all really good information. And so much of the work that I do is then teaching people, okay, so what are the steps to clear that space and reconnect so that if you build it, they will come. If you do all of these steps towards healing and connecting with yourself and your yoni, then these orgasms are a natural result of that. And an essential one. You know, I refer to cervical orgasms as essential good fuck medicine for women. You know, they are healthy, rejuvenating, connecting, transcendent, meditation, ANS reset, autonomic nervous system reset, vagus nerve activation, all in one. And so, you know, when people are doing all of their and shadow work and alchemizing trauma, all of this is packed into the pathway to cervical orgasms. And so it's really the ultimate personal growth tool for women that we are gifted, that so many women don't even recognize, and as you said, isn't even acknowledged within any kind of medical literature, certainly, but even within the kind of, I think, look, I've been speaking about them for decades, and I think this information's become more and more disseminated, certainly within more holistic circles, this idea of vaginal orgasms and G-spot ejaculations, cervical orgasms. But, I've been having them for 3 decades, and they are my mainstay. Like, I had a cervical orgasm before I even had a clitoral orgasm. And I'm so glad that I did, because the standard was really set for me. Oh, an orgasm isn't just a quick hit or stress relief. It's actually meant to change your life. It's meant to self-actualize you, turn you into the best version of yourself, help you to release layers of conditioning and trauma and like challenges, and reconnect you and recalibrate you to your soul essence. And so that's the big gift of these orgasms, and why they really are daily medicine that's essential for all women. And I also want to make it extremely clear that every single woman can have them. Part of what I hear in some of the conversation, especially in the pat you on the head, there, don't worry about it, little girl. If you can't have them, it's okay. Here's your participation trophy. It's like, no, I guarantee that every single woman can have them. And if you haven't yet, you've missed something. There's some kind of blockage. There's some kind of belief. There's some kind of trauma. There's some level of connection that you haven't yet gotten to. And that's why I say that they are barometers to let you know if there's still something you've missed. Versus, okay, if you're having them, you know that you've attained a certain level of self-knowledge and self-mastery, and then there's always another level to go.
Yeah, and I remember in my OBGYN rotation, I went through one elective that was pelvic pain, and one of my mentors was a male OBGYN that had a pelvic pain clinic. And so many of these women, and so many women that I was seeing in the hospital and the clinics, were really complaining about pain during sex. And most women, as throughout the years, I remember just being at dinner tables and this conversation around cervical orgasms would come up, and women oftentimes are like, oh my God, but it's so painful when it touches the cervix. And really, this is showing where there is trapped emotions, trapped energies, and there can really be stuff from past lives, present life, and also different wounds and traumas and things that have happened. And like you said, that process of, even we can go into like de-armoring, right? And there's practices that can be done with yourself and also with a partner who's willing to show up in that way. And whether it's using our hands or using a man's penis with conscious intention, that we can, or even crystal, or I know that you created the glass dildo that is really specific to reaching the cervix as well. But it's really just like we would massage out knots in the body. We really can start to massage out these tension patterns that live in the pelvis, so that we can have that ecstatic, blissful lovemaking that our bodies were literally created to do. And I feel in the bonus, we are going to talk a bit about self-pleasuring and tips to help you de-armor, both for pleasure, but also to support you on your path to cervical orgasm. So like Kim said, it's so important that you know that this is possible for you. And there is spiritual practice as well as actual physical things you can do. And I know in your vaginal kung fu, Kim, you share about this with the yoni egg, and then also in Well Fucked Women, which is another one of your courses that is happening now. If you ladies want to get in that, like, we're extending the opportunity through the end of the month for you to join that salon. And also in there, I'm assuming as well, you go through kind of all the different ways to get to that place, right?
Yeah, the Well Fucked Woman goes into all the different vaginal orgasms that women can have: G-spot, squirting, cervical orgasms, even anal orgasms, adjacent orgasms. And, that yes, and that is something that women might feel initially, is that if they just go straight to the cervix, there can be tightness, tension, even pain. First of all, it's important to approach the cervix very slowly and with a lot of foreplay. And the idea, even a preliminary step, can be yoni massage, as you said, going in and looking for places of tightness and tension to massage and to connect with. And the cervix is the epicenter of feminine sexuality. In Taoist reflexology, the cervix is the heart point. And so if the woman has any kind of guarding, any layer of closure and barriers built up, they will show up in the cervix. And we all do, right? That's part of it's like what we're all here to help dissolve. And so, the method, if a woman is open enough, she can help dissolve those layers through cervical penetration, as in being stimulated at the cervix with a cock or a dildo, and as a preliminary step, using fingers and manual touch to have a softer, more gentle approach, that going into that area and really breathing into these places of tension and tightness to help let them go. And then women can often do have profound emotional releases connected to that. They might cry. Some people laugh hysterically. Anger can come up. And so all of these issues that are lodged within our body and these areas then get released, right? And alchemized. And then we lead into the power of cervical orgasms, which really are connected to this spiritual awakening, right? So the vagus nerve is activated through cervical stimulation, goes all the way up through the heart to the crown chakra. And we have this incredible, women often describe seeing God when they have these cervical orgasms. And as I said, have these profound emotional releases. And this is all good. This is all welcome. This is like bypassing hours of therapy, breath work, ice baths, and plant medicine, all through your own body, literally at your own fingertips.
Yeah, and you're really speaking to even the path of Tantra, where with Tantra, which is why the religions really suppress sexuality, because our enlightenment lives in our sex. And this is so much of, Jesus and Mary Magdalene were practitioners of this. Like, they were Egyptian initiates that practiced Tantra. And right now there's a lot of different schools of Tantra. And even when you talked about the guarding of the heart, like, I'm more of, from my understanding, just because trust is so important, trust and respect and consciousness within a relationship, to really, they're like keys that help to unlock the tantric gifts that happen through that awakening with the sexual energy rising up to feed all the different energy centers. And so I'm curious, actually, a friend of mine knew you were going to be on the podcast, and it's funny how it's naturally coming up. I'm curious your thoughts on cervical orgasms as they relate to a woman choosing a partner. Like, do you think, obviously I feel like if a woman is so secure within herself and probably understands the agreements, that she could probably have a cervical orgasm with any man that she felt comfortable enough with. But ultimately, I think because that's the deepest point a woman is touched, I do find that like secure, monogamous, trustworthy relationships are also supportive to that path of cervical orgasms. What has been your experience as you've guided women in this area?
I would disagree that even if a woman had a lot of her own autonomy, was really well versed in her own energetic, emotional, sexual landscape, that she still wouldn't have cervical orgasms with a casual partner. That she'd have to be in a situation like the cervix is the ultimate, again, barometer and gateway, right? And any little interference field, any degree of not fully all in opening is going to be registering, and it won't happen. And I'd say she could have a G-spot orgasm or squirting with a partner where she could have that own internal state of, I can surrender. If I fall, I can catch myself, because it's not quite as deep. There's a hierarchy of orgasms. It's like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? Where you've got, clitoral orgasms are more superficial, a little more less driven. They can still be fun and explosive and very pleasurable, but they're really not deep, life-changing orgasms. G-spot orgasms are the next step up, and squirting orgasms, where they're definitely more profound, more of an emotional component. Women might have deep cry releases through them. But like I said, she could still have them in a situation where she feels some degree of trust, but not all in. Her heart and, love doesn't have to be there. But the cervix is the all-in point. She needs to be 100% aligned and open to really have these orgasms. So yes, they are more conducive or completely exclusively conducive to a loving connection, where she can feel that I can catch myself, I trust in the universe to catch me, and if I fall, my partner will catch me. That she is completely supported on all fronts, and that the partner connection is essential. I mean, women can have them on their own, right? So, they know that they can open and get there in a solo journey. But if she's with a partner, that has to be a partner who's really, truly, deeply engaged and trustworthy on the most powerful level.
Yeah. So we're so totally on the same page with that. I totally agree. And I'm really of the lineage of Tantra, that monogamous union that is so devoted and so respectful, and like you said, that all in energy for really to these, it's like these gateways and channels that open up. And I think it's important to talk about this, because right now in the Tantra world and in the sexuality expression world of people really coming online more and more with it being a spiritual practice, we're really seeing a lot of these paths that are a little more promiscuous, and there's these temple nights, and they're quite open and polyamorous. And I don't feel that that's the healthiest way to explore sexuality, especially if we're using it as a path to our enlightenment. Just all the karmas that are exchanged, just that level of trust. And so, yeah, I'm happy. Even more, I'm yeah, Kim's my girl. She gets it. Because I tend to be quite expressive and opinionated on this, but I really believe my way is the way. So I like to see what other practitioners share, and I really value your teaching. So I'm really happy that you also agree it's that monogamous, trusting, devotional union that is this cervical path.
Absolutely. And I see that as well. And people are always asking me my take on that. And the way that I talk about it, I've coined the term conscious monogamy, and I say that most people, even when they think they're monogamous, 99.99999% of people are not monogamous, because my definition of conscious monogamy is that you're taking all of your emotional and sexual energy and opening it to this other person. And most people are not radically honest. They're not radically open. They're not fully surrendered emotionally or sexually to their partner. They're holding back. There's things they don't share. There's pieces like sins of omission, lies of omission, or outright lies. And all of those things create, as I said before, an interference field. And that's not really monogamy. To me, monogamy, conscious monogamy, is being all in. So when people try to make the argument, oh, monogamy doesn't work, I'm yeah, what you have isn't actually monogamy. You just have a shitty relationship where you're not really surrendered, you're not really open, you're playing games, even if you don't think you are. Most people are. They don't really know how to fully open within these situations. And even the argument where people will say, well, are we really meant to have sex with the same person for the rest of your life? I'm well, if you're growing and changing, you're not the same person for the rest of your life, and neither is your partner. If you're committed to stagnation, then yeah, I guess you are with the same person for the rest of your life. And in my own experience, and in the experience of all the people I've worked with over the decades, when they truly come together at this level of depth and profound openness, they're fully nourished, and their whole lives are quantum leaped by the depth and the power of that connection, right? Versus people who are, one person gave me a beautiful analogy that I really like, and he was a Taoist practitioner, and he'd been, doing this for about 30 years, and he talked about it being like an oven, that when you're baking a cake, right? And you heat the oven up and you close the oven door and you have the timer on. And so this heat is getting concentrated within the oven. And if you're constantly opening up that door, you're releasing the heat, and it's going to take a lot longer for that cake to bake, or it might fall because, you're interrupting the flow in the process. And I thought that was a really beautiful analogy to the whole conscious monogamy idea. So yeah, that's a fundamental part of my teaching. And it's no moral judgment. I don't care. My discrimination point is always, as in the way I make the decision, is this giving more energy, or is it taking away? Is this building and cultivating energy, or is it depleting it in some way?
Yeah, and even as we're touching upon what true conscious union relationship is, we're getting to another point of how the cervix is also not only connected to the heart, but it's an intuition barometer. And so that's why if there's any lies or omissions or anything in the field where transparency is not fully shared, women will feel that we will feel it in our bodies as like a contraction, or like something feels off. Like, I don't know what it is, but like I'm getting this information. So it's also, I hope that men are listening to this as well, because men, it's also your responsibility to show up in a certain way that's fully honest, fully transparent, and your women will open to you even more. And that opening, that is the energy of the cervical orgasm. It's very opening and surrendered. And she can't surrender to you if she can't trust you. And so trust is so vital. And that is something, as the masculine, you have to choose. And it's not always easy, but she, especially if she's a highly intuitive woman, she's an awakened woman, she will feel everything. And she will feel it in the deepest parts of her body, in her core, in her cervix. So men, this is also on you to support your woman to really open with you if you want to experience her cervical orgasms, which will also transmit God to you. And so, ladies, if you're listening and you want your man, like let him listen to this part. And Pam, I also invite you, like, especially I know you do couples programs. What is your advice for men in helping them support their women to cervical orgasm in that state of union?
The ultimate mantra for men is, if you fall, I will catch you. And so the masculine's job is to be continually communicating this energy to the woman, whether it's verbally, but especially through his actions, which is, I've got you, I've got this. And one of the biggest ways that men do that, and a phrase that I like to use a lot, is like, the sexiest thing that a man can do is exactly what he says he's going to do. Right? Like, so if you say you're going to take out the garbage, you take out the garbage. It doesn't matter what little things they are. It's all about you proving yourself to be trustworthy and that you follow through on your actions, right? And all of those things like continually build a container for the woman to then surrender and open up into. And so, yes, I think, we live in a culture that really values white lies, right? We think it's more important to lie, to save, and not hurt someone's feelings than to actually be really open and honest. And that creates, again, this interference field within relationships where I call it the lie of a lie. Like, we think that we can tell a lie and get away with it because maybe the person hasn't consciously registered exactly what the lie is. But on an unconscious level, we know everything. We see and feel everything. And so, as you say, like, that'll then show up in the body as resistance, as a contraction, as, even as like not being able to get wet for a woman, or not being able to get hard for a man, or premature ejaculating for a man, or the woman can't orgasm. All of these things show up in the body, and especially show up in bed. And so ultimately, like in the work I do with couples, and I also do men's programs, it's about having a collective agreement for radical openness and honesty and communication and this conscious monogamy. Then we go quantum leaps into other dimensions and really harness the true power of our intimate relationships and sexuality, which is what we're meant to be doing. All of the casual, superficial, like cheesy Hooters-esque porn kind of presentations of sexuality are distortions and they're distractions. And they pull us away from the true power of our sexual energy. And again, I don't have moral judgments about any of these things. I could care less, really. The choices people want to make, like your life, go do it. But in terms of my work and looking at what's the best way to achieve the most like internal power and love and spiritual enlightenment, it's through consciously using our sexual connection and relationship.
Yeah, and you're bringing us into the last topic I want to talk about, which are the things that kind of keep us away from the cervical orgasm, the things that may numb us and kind of desensitize us. And you spoke of one, which is pornography. And I know that's one of my like absolute nots. Like for me, if a guy is watching pornography, it's like absolutely not. Like this is not gonna work, because just like you said, it's like you can do that, but it's just like not aligned energetically for where we're going and the level of relationship. Also, even like vibrators, right? For women, like this is so not helpful. It's because it numbs us with sensation wise. I've even felt, to be honest, like things like birth control and antidepressants as a medical doctor, I feel like those also create a distortion in terms of our hormones as women. And so I do not feel they are helpful to really support us in opening sexually, because antidepressants are known to numb, because instead of experiencing the true emotional depth of whatever's happening, whether it's a high or low, you're kind of staying in this artificial place. And even there's studies that show with birth control, how if a woman comes off of birth control, she may not even be attracted to her same partner still. So be careful before you marry a man. Yeah. And so I'm wondering if there's any other things you might want, or either diving into these, or if there's any other things you want to, let people be mindful of if they're really wanting to open to cervical orgasms and have sexuality be a path to enlightenment. What are some things that, and another thing too is like even like masturbating or self-pleasuring to other people. I feel like that's not good, because you create cords, and really you want to focus inward, not so much like finding something to attach to. I think that has also been another one I found that can be really transformational energetically. So if there's anything you want to share on that.
Well, all of those points I'd say are good. Like, I don't agree as well, with the use of pornography for various reasons, from the hormonal and neurotransmitter depletion to the energetics of connecting on whatever level, interdimensional level, with these other people's energies, and that it just dissociates people and takes them out of their body. Vibrator use, similar thing. I mean, I think that if a woman has never had a clitoral orgasm and she wants to awaken the clitoris, then perhaps using a vibrator as a temporary aid could be helpful. But as soon as she awakens it, then I would toss the vibrator, because then it desensitizes the clitoris. And I also agree with the idea, I talk about this a lot, is being aware of who you're fantasizing about, because you're encroaching upon other people's psychic space, and not just keeping your attention within your own body and your own self, and getting to unfold these different dimensions within your own being and self-knowledge, right? Know thyself. And having a regular self-pleasuring practice, a self-exploration practice. We mentioned yoni massage earlier, and that's something that I teach within my classes as well, is how to really get into activate, de-armor, denumb, reconnect to these places and awaken the vagina. And that was the whole ethos behind my vaginal kung fu and hashtag things I lift with my vagina, lifting surfboards and chandeliers and coconuts all around the world, was showing people that most vaginas really are numb, and just like any other part of the body, it needs exercise and it needs to be reconnected with, especially on the quest to have these deeper orgasms, right? Most vaginas are fully numb. And so when we start to wake them up, we get to see the real pleasure and power that's available there.
Yeah, beautiful. And in the bonus, we're going to go deeper into that and share some tips for self-pleasuring to support you if you are wanting to cultivate cervical orgasms more in your personal practice. And so, Kim, you're such a fund of knowledge, and I just love how you share in just really authentic way. You're just like, this is how it is. Like, even I love that you use the term well-fucked women, and I just so appreciate just how expressed you are. And I feel like this is also a product of like your second chakra, like your sexual energy is so expressed. And it's really all connected, right? Like money, power, sex, it's all connected. And you're a woman that really embodies your power to the 100th degree. It's so clear in your social media, it's clear in how you share your teaching. So I just really want to honor you and thank you for taking the time today. And we're going to include the links to connect with Kim and to check out her courses and such. But if you want to let people know where to find you as well on Instagram.
Right. So kimanami.com is my website, and all of my online programs are called salons. And for women, we have the Well Fucked Woman, which is open for registration right now, and Vaginal Kung Fu. And then I also have a couples class called Coming Together, a men's class, Sexual Mastery for Men, and then I have a holistic pregnancy and orgasmic birth salon called Sexy Mama. So that's another one of the orgasms that women can have is their birth orgasm. So my Instagram is Kimanami, YouTube. My own podcast is called Orgasmic Enlightenment because I'm all about the spiritual and the sexual coming together.
Beautiful. So everyone check him out. Thank you so much for being here. And we will see you next time on the podcast and inside the bonus content. Bye for now.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Dr. Nikki Starr Show. Please like this podcast and share it with anyone you feel would benefit. Subscribe to the podcast to receive bonus content, and remember, every Monday the video version goes live on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for being on the ascension path with me and for doing this great work.